Hi, Chandra.
First thing to do would be to mention that you're the author of a book called The Space Between Us, Awakening Together in a Fractured World, that was published by Emergence Education, which also publishes The Artist of Possibility. And the topic collective awakening is the topic of this next issue. And so, of course, it was a very natural fit to interview you and find out more about your experiences in this very fascinating experiment that I think is being done around the world
Yes,
in
yeah,
different
yeah.
ways.
We're definitely not the only ones, but something quite big is happening, and we feel we're part of that emergence. But it's a much bigger picture than just what we're doing. But it's also good to feel connected to that picture. We're not working in isolation. We are working with something that really is pushing to come through at this challenging time for humanity. It's going to be an important resource for the future, and for now. Actually, this is not just a future. This is this. The situation is very hot now. It's a hot. Someone described it in one of our recent meetings as a hot potato, and yeah. So, future now is one way I've started to describe it. So, yeah.
Well, how do you see collective awakening as being something new or emergent that's different from what's gone before?
Okay, so diving in at the deep end. Well, first of all, my experience of it's, I mean, it goes back, this all started about, how far to take it back. What I wrote about in the book started to emerge about 3.5 years ago with four friends meeting together, quite informally, certainly with no agenda to spark something bigger other than getting together. And in that meeting, something extraordinary happened between us. We had a lot of shared history that fell away. There was an immediacy, a deep intimacy, um, a curiosity, something very alive between the four of us. It really was. It didn't even land to begin with. It was one of those afterwards, like, what happened? That was extraordinary. It was one of those sort of after moments. And from that, the groups emerged and rolled forward, and I suppose my experience of it is that it's always fresh, it's always new. That we're not rehashing old stuff. We're sort of there's a living edge that we inhabit in the meeting as much as we possibly can. Every meeting is different. Um, and that the more we sort of get out of the way in terms of who we think we are and all the stuff we carry, the more something new and fresh arises between us. So from that point of view, it always feels like it's happening for the first time. Um, and yet at the same time, there is a recognition that this is a deep human facility. We're not creating something brand new.
Hmm.
This is an aspect and a depth of our humanity that's always been present, and I'm sure has emerged at different times in the past. If you kind of look at the spiritual literature, you can kind of see evidence of it in different
Yes.
times. The whole emphasis on Sangha going back to the Buddha, you get the sense that it's always been a human capacity. Um, but I think there's something about this moment in time with our digital connections and the way the world is, wired together now, and the speed with which those connections happen. There's an
Yes.
enormous potential for this deep capacity, which is starting to come to the fore again, for it to replicate, for it to, this interview is going to go out to how many hundreds of people, you know, uh, they're going to talk about it to how many, they might share the link. This is extraordinary. So um, there's a wonderful potential in this moment for that brand newness that's also ancient and inherently part of human beings, the flower, in a way that actually has the potential for big impact. Um, so that's what excites me is um, that always on the edge of discovering something new that you know is also um, this living potential. The potential has always been there. That's my sense. Um, and when we get out of the way, that starts to come through. So I don't know if that's, I don't know quite where we're going now, but we've
Yes.
launched in. Can
Yes.
I return it with a question to you?
Sure.
Mind?
Yes.
Because I'm interested. Because Jeff said I want Chandra to do the interview. This is something she's very interested in. So I'm kind of so this becomes more of a conversation. I'm kind of interested.
Yes.
Do you have experience in this? And then we can sort of share understandings
Yes.
and things rather than being question answer. That actually we go
Yes.
somewhere together in an
Yes.
investigation.
So I was part of a group that Jeff started in 2023, experimenting with collective awakening. And when you say learning how to get out of your own way, that was really a large part of I'd say the in a sense the groundwork for having this emerging sense of something completely new to me in my experience in my lifetime. This sense that, and it just became stronger and stronger, where there were some very painful parts of letting go who I thought I was. But there was always, and this always happened kind of between meetings. It wasn't something that happened in the meeting, you know. It wasn't even something that the group talked about much. There was some personal things, but not really that much. But this sense of an enormous support that was happening that made the difficult parts of really, looking back on it, it's like you've been living as a certain idea of yourself for your whole lifetime, and then suddenly, and that's very difficult to change. And then, but being given glimpses of, oh, there's a completely different way of being in the world, and it is this interesting experience, or of not, that it does have to do with not being so individual, and that there is some sort of collective essence there that arises or was always there, and you're being called into, being drawn into. So that, to me, that transformative aspect of it is just fascinating and something that I want to keep exploring. Yes.
Yeah, and what's the two things strike me from what you're saying. One is that there's a an invitational quality when I mean we talk about the field. The field is nothing other than our deepest sense of self when it's unlimited. So, and it's something we share. So that's why there's a sense of um, meeting in something common that's universal. And for me, there is this invitational quality to just lean in, let's what's going on in my conceptual mind just fade to the background and actually lean in and listen and engage. And that for me is the sort of the dynamic. Um, and the way I wrote the book was very much well, what came through me as I was writing the book, because in
Mhm.
a weird way, I didn't write the book. The meetings came through me and wanted to be put down on the page, and that was my experience of writing it. And then reading it back, realizing it's actually written as an invitation to dive in, join in, experience this different level of being. The second thing I want to respond to was because there's quite a paradox because it is about leaving all your ideas of who you are behind, but at the same time being fully who you actually are. So there is an individual quality. So we're not, in a meeting, it's not 10 people all saying exactly the same thing with the same voice and the same mannerisms. It's not that at all. It's 10 uniquely special is the wrong word, but unique individuals speaking in their own voice from their own real experience, but into a context where it's not about them. Um, there's a chapter in the book called, your path is the portal, and there's the recognition that as we carry the sum total of our life experience as we are everything, everything that's impacted us, everything that we've done is sort of integrated somehow or other into our being, in the bigger context of that which is infinite potential, ultimate space, all that. But our whole embodied lived experience is also part of who we are. So we don't need to carry a narrative in our head. We don't need to have a story. It's all part of who we actually are anyway. And when you let go of the narrative, it allows that, because the narrative constrains you into some sort
Mhm.
of prison of self-identity, which limits you unconsciously. And when you let go of the narrative, the lived embodied experience somehow is contextualized in something vaster and unlimited. So for me, speaking from my own real experience
Mhm.
and being real about that, not personal, just real and open, vulnerable, being vulnerable, being transparent, allows other people, it gives the other people the space to do the same. So it's the real meeting the real. And in that, the universal starts to, the universal aspects of our humanity just start to reveal themselves. And you kind of go, it's sometimes in a meeting, someone's speaking, you almost feel you're saying the same words. It's like it's coming from somewhere that's also part of you. Um, and that's when it gets sort of, but at the same time, it's not, I'm very clear that it's not about the dissolving of your unique identity. You're not merging into some greater whole that you lose yourself. My sense is that you actually become more authentically who you are, but not limited by that. It's you start to plug into the bigger picture as yourself, because that's the context of the way we meet. So it's a
Yes.
paradox, the
Yes.
individual is of paramount importance, but not in a personal way. It's the
And
doorway
how
we
would
each have to
you,
walk through. So yeah, sorry, go. Yeah.
yeah, how would you define personal? Because we both use that word. And
Yeah, okay. It's
uh,
important to get clear because yeah, um, there's a quality in when we meet. There's a quality of attention um, that's pulled. You feel you watch people when someone's really speaking from their authentic self in a way that they really don't quite know what they're going to say next. They're on this edge.
yes,
So you're
yes.
pulled onto that edge with them because you don't know what they're going to say either. And there's this sort of quality of rapt, alive, vivid attention that sort of energizes the space. And the opposite happens if someone sort of brings something as an issue, as a problem. Oh, I've
Yes.
got the, oh, boom. They sort of dump it in the room, almost like deal with that, guys. And you feel the energy go down. You feel everybody sort of, start to back away. So it's that quality. You can bring your personal into the space, but it's almost as a way as an offering, as something. This is, like some of our meetings we've dealt with. Someone came with with a situation in America at the moment, dealing with fear issues and anger, fear and anger, and you could imagine that being something we could all constrict around and get
Yes.
tight. And lose that sort of quality of attention. Almost, you can feel the boundaries, the barriers sort of come up. But there's also a way of bringing it that it is an aspect of the human condition, and the field has the space to hold it and investigate it and come together. So, and not to resolve it, but just to, it's an
Right.
aspect of the human condition. Um, and I feel that's some of the important work that can be done with the field, this field of being, is that, it's not about transcending the human condition and going, everything's wonderful. Look, we're all together in this beautiful, blissful place and unity and oneness. It's actually about how do we bring that back down into our embodied reality in a way that allows us to transform, allows us to see through our conditioning, allows us to see through those unconscious biases and all the ways we take positions and go, oh wow, and that's when and to do it in with your peers is to be seen. It's to you reveal yourself to both yourself and to your peer group, and they see you for who you really are. And in that seeing, that's where the transformation happens because you see yourself, you build confidence in that aspect of your being that goes beyond all those
Yes.
ideas we're holding. So you start to feel, I actually feel more comfortable in that aspect of myself rather than the place where I tend to hide out. So it builds confidence that way. But there's also a risk because you have put out to other people, this is who I am. So they're going to hold you to who they've seen you to be. So I think that's how the transformation aspect really, really works. So for me, it is about the transformation of the individual. And in that, the group itself is transformed. And the potential for that to ripple out is also, you
Yes.
know. But it comes down, it does, again, comes down to the individual, but yet we're dealing with the universal. It's this um,
Yes, it
wonderful
is
paradox.
yes, it is a certain quality of, and going back to the personal and bringing this problem and dumping it into the room, it's that at that moment, the individual is not actually alive and present in what's actually happening in the moment. It
Yes,
is this, like you had said earlier, this narrative or this construction that's being carried around. And so it is like being in this space together allows that to soften and to dissolve. And as you say, then that trust is built in, well, actually, what's happening right now is the way. It's the way to be, not just in this group, but in the world. That
yes, yes.
yeah, it softens
You
up.
take it, you take, yeah, you take it out into the world with you because you've drawn a line in the sand for yourself. There's a deeper recognition. So obligation's a strong word, but there's a certain responsibility to live from that center that you've discovered, um, because then you make it available to others as well. You ripple out, you ripple. Gosh, I wrote a piece in. It's a poem that then ended up in the book called "Hold This Space,"
Hmm.
and it's about when you have discovered who you are, this vast, limitless, boundless sort of inherent potential that is coming through you as a body. That the everybody else is that as well. In recognizing it as yourself, you're not special. You realize that every other human being is also that, even if they have absolutely no idea that
Yes,
that's the
that they are.
case. In
Yes.
fact, most people are completely convinced it's not the case. But if you hold the space for them and relate to them as if that is who they are, you give them a different way of responding to, our normal way of responding is we butt up against each other as separate individuals and negotiate.
Yes.
But this
Yeah.
is different to that. This is actually allowing them the space to be the same as you are at the deepest level. And somewhere, I'm sure it's recognized, even if they're not conscious of it.
Hmm.
So you find the world responds differently to you when you go out from that place.
Yes.
Yeah, it's quite extraordinary. Yeah, yeah.
And I think it also speaks to another thing that you mentioned in the book about this being different than the model that's been around for so many centuries of the guru and the disciple, where there's this inherent hierarchy that can create the boundaries of, well, there's not total equality. And maybe you can speak more to that as how these groups function, because you have people who start the group, and there's a natural sense for others to want to look to them perhaps as being the leader, or so then how does that get
It's a very delicate line. Um, where to come at this from? So first of all, the book arose out of this original group that
hmm
happened very spontaneously, and so this is so right from the very beginning, there was no inherent hierarchy in the structure. There was just the four original people, and we invited more people in. And yes, we were sort of curating the group and meeting outside of the group to at the beginning, it all felt very fragile and
hmm
like it needed support. So
Okay.
four of us would meet independently of the bigger group just to, how's it going? Who should we invite in? And at a certain point, we realized we didn't need to keep doing that. It was starting to build its own momentum, its own energy, and people within the group were also starting to take responsibility for being sensitive to the space. It happened
hmm
slowly, but I would definitely say in the early days, there was one of us in the original four who um, was certainly much more awake to potential and also the risks, um, and the the risk to self out there. So what we found was one of the biggest risks was it's a wonderful space to meet in. And that intimacy is so beautiful and so unusual that you can kind of relax back in a way. And relaxing is part of the picture. You can relax off the edge
Uh-huh.
and start to say, wow, this is just a wonderful place to hang out. This is really nice.
Okay,
But
yeah. Uh-huh.
transformation isn't happening then because you're just kind of going, oh, it's really nice to be together, isn't it? This is kind of wonderful. So it did require someone to sort of bring that edge back into focus, guys. So this is great, but I think there's more we can do and there's further we can go. So, but as the group has unfolded, more and more people, it's not just ended up being one person, more and more people have stepped up to take that role. We're now running some more focus groups. We call them
hmm
between us groups. Started about 4 weeks ago now. And Anne and myself, who Anne is one of the other original
hmm
four members of the original four of the original group, um, are we called ourselves facilitators, but someone in the last meeting, or one of the last meetings, actually said you're more of hosts than facilitators.
Uh-huh.
Um, and what we're finding is a very, very delicate line. As we've set up the space, we are responsible for it. We've invited the people in.
Right.
But I wrote and read a piece out at the start of every because we've got three groups running concurrently, and
Okay.
it was called a willingness to change or a willingness to be changed. Um, and the point I made in it was there isn't a vantage point outside of the meeting. We're not standing anywhere different to all the other participants. We're standing in the same space, offering ourselves up to be changed by the process in the same
Yes.
way all the other participants. And so we're not outside sort of directing actions. We don't know where it's going to go. It's very the agenda, there is an agenda, and the agenda is transformation. We
hmm
don't have a plan for every meeting in advance. We kind of just allow what wants to unfold. it's how can you be hands-on and hands-off at the same time? So it's a very delicate line to walk. Um, we're finding ourselves stretched by that.
Uh-huh.
So how I think our responsibility is more to the quality of the space,
Okay,
and in
yes.
that, um, than the individuals. So we're not trying to direct everyone's experience. We've
Right.
invited them in to take responsibility for their own way they interact and the degree they want to sort of open themselves up to the possibility of change. So it's more about being sensitive to the container and
Hmm.
stepping in when you need to, not in any way trying to direct where it's going to go. So you can see the delicacy of the
Yes.
situation, and we're checking in with each other, almost all the time to make sure that we are letting it unfold in the way it wants to unfold, um, while making sure that I think that it's about making it a safe space for people, and it's a challenging space. It's
Yes, because sometimes people can say or do things that make it not so safe for the other people that are there. It it happens. And so then it is like, okay, how do you maintain it to be a safe space for everybody, yet also allow these things to come up that are not,
yes,
it's a virtual environment. There's no actual
yeah,
harm being done, but yet there is the
yeah. You've got to be
yeah.
sensitive to the dynamic and where it's going. I mean, we're actually completely blown away by what is actually happening. It's quite
Uh-huh.
extraordinary, and the way it's. Um, I'm reluctant to sort of define it too much. Plus, also, I'm also aware of the confidentiality aspect of the group.
Yes,
But
yes, yeah.
transformation is happening visibly, and we're sort of like, wow. So,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
um, something else I was going to. So, oh yeah, I mean, we kind of realized right at the very beginning of the group that we had subtly taken on a role as a sort of an unconscious identity as the facilitators.
Right,
And
right.
that got exposed pretty damn quickly. Right,
Uh-huh.
that's interesting. So, and it's for me, it's a process. I feel I'm being peeled away with every
Uh-huh.
meeting, like different layers, unconscious biases, ways of taking position are being, highlighted to me mainly, but I'm sure to others. And um, yeah, transformation is it's not just the individuals in the group, it's us as well. So that's what makes it really exciting because we've got another couple of months of these meetings. I have no idea where we're going to be at the end of that
Yes,
time because it's just
yes.
quite extraordinary what's opening up.
How many people are there total in these groups?
So we had about because this all kicked off with the book launch that Jeff organised. We'd sort of
Yes.
before the book launch, we had a sense of building on the book and offering something. Um, and we sort of mentioned it at the book launch. And then suddenly we had 90 people sending us emails going, I'm interested. And what we realized is there's a deep longing, this real connection out there. There's a hunger and a thirst for it. So suddenly we had loads of people knocking on our door going, say, yeah, what are you offering? So we were like scrambling to put something together. This
Oh,
is,
uh-huh.
this is the whole thing has been the book was never written as an intention. It just emerged. It got published. And so something is happening and we're sort of surfing the wave in a way.
Yes.
We haven't got a plan. We don't know where it's
Uh-huh.
going.
Uh-huh.
We are
Uh-huh.
riding this wave which is taking us somewhere. Um, and so anyway, I've kind of lost my thread, but you get a sense of the way this is. Oh yeah, I was talking. So yeah, you asked how many people. So out of that original 90, with the time zones and all the practical issues, we ended up with
Right.
30 people who about 30 who've joined us. So we've got three groups of
Okay.
about 10 in each group,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
which
Uh-huh.
seems to be a really a good number.
10
So
people.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
roughly 10. And then with us, two of us, 12.
Oh, right.
Yes.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Yes. 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 Yeah. Because it is interesting to see if there's a minimum number of people or a maximum number of people. I have a feeling there probably is. Um,
We've experimented because the way we set these groups up is a little more formal than our original group. So
mhm.
we're running the initial group is for 12 weeks on a weekly basis for about an hour and a half with people. Where we go at the end of the 12 weeks, we don't know. Hopefully the groups will also have a sense of where they want to go. So that's something that will emerge. Um, but so these 10 people are committed to turning up every week as long as that's practical for them. Our original group is more informal, so we've probably got about 30 to 40 people on our email list. We
How
meet
many?
every two, about 30 to 40.
Oh, really? Okay.
Um,
Uh-huh.
we meet every 2 to 3 weeks, but we don't get everybody turning up. So it's very informal. We'll send the invite out and we see who turns up. So we've had, 7 to sort of just over 20. It's
Uh-huh.
varied. But the field seems to be able to metabolize
Uh-huh.
whoever turns up. Um, so yes. So I don't know if there's a minimum number or a maximum number, but we've
Right.
certainly
Okay.
found yeah, and I suppose because even Anne and I meeting the two of us, we're meeting in the field. It's a very alive, emergent quality. So I think the minimum is two. It's not
Yeah,
going to work
yes,
with
I
one.
guess yes.
So yeah, as to how many it will hold. I think it's just the practicalities of this is on a Zoom screen. How many can you get that
And who can,
allows people a sense of being integrated rather than missed. So yeah, so that to me
yes, that
it's
they
more of a
can
practical
speak.
limit, I think. Yeah, yeah.
Right, right. Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah, I'm just thinking about kind of more in a physical space. You can get in, well, um, yeah, I guess I'm just thinking about the physical versus
Mm.
the virtual, and the virtual is in one sense more
Unlimited.
unlimited.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
I mean, in many ways, the book launch that Jeff organised, I mean, that was an online event. I think there were just shy of 100 people in the room, and there was definitely a quality of being together in something extraordinary that came through first in the dialogue with Jeff and myself, but then when it was open to questions.
Hmm.
So, um, although it wasn't, in terms of format, the same sort of kind of free agenda of a meeting that we're sort of running as between us groups, there was still a quality of being in something bigger than the individuals who were there. So,
Yes, yes, where the people who were speaking were asking questions or speaking from a that that sense of an emerging.
yeah, they were real. They were real questions that we found a real response to. So yes, that's it wasn't it wasn't conceptual. It wasn't sort of academic sort of questions. What's the nature of it? It really was people coming from their own real experience about what does that mean in their lives. And you think, yeah, that's that edge that
Yes,
makes it very alive.
yes, yes, which does again, it kind of speaks to what um that it's almost like a quality of self that's developed that then can be taken into different contexts, and it doesn't stay, as you say, in kind of this collective awakening group. It can then go into a group where people are asking questions, or you can go into interacting with the cashier at the supermarket, or
Yes,
yes.
yeah. I mean, you bring that example up. Someone brought that to one of our meetings recently. That um, I can't remember the specifics now, but she was aware that something that the quality of the exchange with the cashier was different because she was aware of who she was in the process. So yeah, and I think that's how this is going to ripple out
Hmm.
into the real world. And we think, you know, this is something we've talked about this, Anne and I. We don't have any firm plans, but that this is possibly something you could start to take out into different social environments, you know, ultimately like the boardroom, you know, what would the effect of you know, a table of directors coming to a meeting with no agenda and then seeing what happens? I
Yes.
mean, it's hard to imagine, but you know, that's the sort of the bigger vision, I think.
Yes. Yes. Or to have a
How,
meeting that, that aside from the meetings that do have agendas, to have meetings without agendas
yeah,
where,
and just
yes, yes.
see what I mean, I think that, you know, I'm sure lots of companies have brainstorms and things, but I think there's a different quality to what we're offering or would possibly like to bring to something like that, which is to just put down all the agendas and just see what happens.
Yes.
They might surprise themselves. Um, yeah,
Yes. Yes. And I think that gets back to another question that I had about um, these groups that are being formed. They're, people that are participating there's a hunger for it.
yeah,
And they've also already done a lot of, um, meditation, active listening, self-transformation type work, quote unquote. Um, and yes, in how, I guess the question is, in some ways, it's maybe again like being present in the moment and knowing when, from that moment, when that field can invite people in and when it can't. Um,
yeah.
when people are too, um,
I think I know what you're getting towards. Is how much experience do you I think you have to have done some inner work.
mhm.
Um, I think the people that are feeling the longing for this are people who've already done some inner work. They've got some conscious sense of they've started to do the you know listen to teachings, engage in spiritual practice, do meditation because they're aware that there's an aspect of their being they need to develop and discover more. So I think you kind of have to have done some degree of that to be aware of that longing and where and what might satisfy that longing. You know, because I think we all, if I look back at my own way of the way I got on the spiritual path, um, it was just like a little thread. Something came into my life, and I didn't know what it was, but it was like this is important, and I have to follow it, see where it's going to go, you know, and you know, from very, very limited perspectives, the picture just got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. But I think you've got to have had that initial recognition in yourself that there's a doorway that's opening, and you know you have the choice whether to go through it or not. And if you start to walk that path, you know it reveals itself one step at a time. Um, so I think it would be very unlikely if someone hasn't done that sort of initial work that they'd even recognize what the groups are about.
Mhm.
But saying that, we've had certainly in our original group, which was you know we've got sort of 3 years of experience with them. we've invited people in who don't have a huge amount of
Hmm.
spiritual experience, or who've got kind of stuck, or long-term seekers who've got jaded with the whole thing and sort of cynical and somewhere given
Uh-huh.
up. Um, and they've come back into the space of the room of the meeting, and something has woken up in them again. You can see the light
Uh-huh.
go on. We had this one period when we expanded the group quite significantly over the course of a couple of meetings. We invited between 10 and 12 new people to come in. And as much as an experiment to see would the field be able to hold that sort of change.
Yes.
And the very first meeting, we were like, we couldn't believe it because they came into the meeting and just relaxed into it. It was like they consciously recognized the quality in
Uh-huh.
the room and let go and started to speak. You know how hard it can be to you join a new group to actually just take the risk to put yourself out there.
Yes. Yes.
You haven't tested the waters. You don't know how safe the space is. Well, these people kind of walked in and just opened up and revealed themselves. And Anne and I were like, this is amazing. Um, so, and I think with the new groups, the rate at which change is happening and transformation is happening is kind of leaving us. Um, it's not quite what we expected,
Uh-huh.
but it's deeply joyous to
Yes.
witness and to be part of that process. Um, so I think it's actually got enormous potential for anyone um, who recognizes that longing in themselves and also
Mhm.
recognizes the importance of following it. And I think as long as you've got that intention and that recognition, um, and that sense of being willing to take the risk, because it's all about risk as well, exposing yourself, who you are, from an unknown place feels like a risky thing to do. We're normally very well defended in the
Yes.
positions we take. That's our sort of default. So this feels very raw and challenging to be on that sort of edge. Um, and so I think you've got to. That's something everybody will have to sort of metabolize for themselves as they come into the space. But if you've done that and you make yourself available, then I think
Yes.
the speed with which it speed's the wrong word, but the ease
The,
with which people are able to recognize what's actually going on and to give themselves to that process is can be quite short. And
uh-huh.
yeah.
Yeah. Yes. I
So I wrote in
appreciate
the
what you're
book.
saying.
I know because someone reviewed my book before I published it. I sent it to a few people to read for comments. And one person said, "Well, you've not mentioned the importance of meditation." And I was like,
Oh,
I
that's
sat
yeah.
with that. I sat with it and thought, And I realized it's not my job to put preconditions on
Uh-huh.
who this is for. That's not
Yes.
my job. It's if
Yes,
anyone has
exactly.
got the recognition, it's because we've again coming back to this paradox of the individual and the whole. Um, it's all about personal autonomy. It's you were talking about the teacher guru, the teacher sort of student relationship, and for us, the agent of transformation is the individual themselves. It's not someone handing something down from above. It's actually the individual being willing to step into that space and go, I'm open to this. And so the transmission isn't coming from anybody, it's coming from the whole group. It's the field that
Exactly
arises
that.
between us is nothing other than us. It's not
Yes.
some external, it's not this God force outside of us that's sort of descending on the group at all. It's the totality of us in that space, allowing. our inherent potential to go through, and that inherent potential is not separate. So, but it's completely us and not us at the same time. And that's so it's the individual having the autonomy to step into the space and saying, I'm available.
Yes, and
And
ha
that's the agent of transformation, and that's where it all happens.
I
And
think that's yes, because that's something that I've been struggling with because I'm wanting to start another group and okay, so how yes, who is it open to or how does this work? And to try and put limits on it just didn't seem right. But I think there is this quality of that whoever joins, there needs to maybe be an awareness that it is transformational and it is there has to be a willingness to really know that this isn't just stepping into some sort of blissful place that um although is and can be extremely
oh yes, yeah, yeah, it is,
blissful,
yeah,
but it
yeah,
does require some sort of, I don't know, sacrifice of who, you know, who
yeah.
people think they are. And as you say, who that extends to everybody that's participating. There's nobody outside the circle.
I agree, and I think our sense also. I think with our next set of groups, I think we've been pretty upfront with what it's actually about. But I think we almost need to be more upfront. Um, what the nature of risk is, what's what just so people are completely clear about the nature of the chamber they're going to step into willingly, um, so that they're not taken too much by surprise when it starts to happen.
Yes.
So I think that's one, as hosts, as facilitators, that's actually part of our responsibility is to be sure that the people we're inviting in are ready and prepared and completely eyes wide open before they do. Um, at the same time, it's not like having a university application where sort
Right.
of these boxes have to be ticked, and if they haven't ticked that one, no, you're not.
Right, exactly. Yes.
It's like it's connecting with them. You're being able to connect with the person in a way that you sense um, how authentic they are in terms of where they want to go with it, and that becomes very clear really quickly in a group
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
once people
Uh-huh.
start to reveal themselves. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. I'm so grateful to have been able to speak to you. Um, it's yeah.
I love having conversations about this. It's. I mean, we talk about transformation. 3 years ago, before we started the group, but this wasn't even an aspect of my life. This was,
Really.
a glimmer of an idea. So, and now it's the center of it's why I get up in the morning, and it's what excites me, and I'd love to talk about it and share. Um, so I have this going off piste a little bit again.
Uh-huh.
I've had this vision for a while. Have you probably come across Indra's net as a sort of a metaphor
All right. Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
for intelligence in between sentient beings? That each of us is a node in a network, and we're connected to every other node, and every other node is reflected in us. And I also have this sense of groups like ours also being a node.
Yes.
That in a way, our meetings, our groups are containers of the field in a sense. Like they're sort of it's where with all the individuals coming together, there's a concentrated sort of energy of the field in those spaces. Um, and if we start to link up
with
make
other,
connections between the groups.
yes,
You just get the sense of this field being supported by
yes,
a bigger and bigger network, which then really has the potential to catalyze
yes, to just keep,
real change. There's a
yes.
quote again. I use it in the book by um, some I kind of don't know what sort of scientist he is, but and I'm going to get his name wrong, I'm sure, but Ilya Prigogine or something like that.
Hmm.
And it's about in a sea of chaos, an island of coherence has the capacity to produce radical change. So it
Okay.
might only be a small
Yes.
percentage of the whole, but if the whole is chaos and there's an island of coherence, it can
It
catalyze
can actually,
big.
yeah,
It can shift
the
paradigm, I
structure,
suppose, almost. Yeah, it acts as a seed that
crystallization of,
yes, yeah,
of
so they
creating
can grow.
order out of chaos. Yes, yes.
Yeah. So
I,
that's part of the vision I mean, it's not my vision, it's not my idea, but it's one
but
that resonates
yes,
with me very, very deeply. So we're also reaching out to other groups and making connections and
yes. I think that I'm seeing
forming
it, this, yeah,
sort of network. It's only, meet and swap like this, having conversations. It's having those
yeah,
conversations.
yes,
Something new arises. I feel in this, I've been expressing my understanding differently to how I have before. Something new arises with new people, new contexts, new stimuluses. So that's what keeps it very alive, very fresh. Yeah.
and I think it is very much, as you mentioned, the situation in the United States and the, as we talked about in the beginning of the interview, the fear and the anger and the chaos truly that's being generated. And it is, I've always been thinking about the structure of scientific revolutions, which I read way back when, and it was about when the system becomes too large for itself and it can't manage itself anymore, that there is this period of disintegration.
Yes.
And and these groups to me feel like it's not at all, like you say, it's not like getting together and deciding, well, this is how democracy should work. It's
Yeah.
not
Yeah. Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's somehow this quality of energy of yes, having this node of an island. I love that, the island
Yeah.
of coherence and in a sea of chaos that enables this new
Yeah. We're not
yeah,
trying to fix the old.
right.
It's not about trying to reassemble something that's falling apart. It's actually almost like it's falling apart because it's no longer fit for purpose.
Yes.
That's the
Yes.
picture. And I think it's daily being revealed how unfit for purpose it actually is, and actually how it's had the appearance of one thing, but actually something else is being actually going on. So for me, it's about creating a new beginning, a new possibility, a new like these are new shoots emerging through the cracks of the old that's crumbling. And
Yes.
we don't know, it's not got a form, it's not got a structure at the moment. In fact, for me, I've written a couple of pieces recently. Um, it's almost about protecting that moment of emergence and not imposing anything on it at all,
Yes.
allowing it to
Um,
be what
a seed.
it allow the inherent potential that's coming through in that moment to arise uncontaminated in a way by our ideas of how it should be and of what we want it to be. We're enjoying this, so can we allow it to emerge? So we're fully supporting it without directing it. It's that sort of delicate
A
quality.
trust in,
Um, and trust. It's trusting in the. I see it as the future calling us, not a future
yes.
that's determined. It's not determined in any way, shape, or form, but there's a potential sitting out there, and it's acting as a magnet on this moment. Um, and our role, our responsibility is to protect that moment as carefully as we can and allow it to be what it wants to be. So it's
Yes,
you're trusting in something that you don't know what it's going to look like, which
exactly.
is quite
Yes,
extraordinary, isn't it,
yes,
for a human being to order their
yes,
trust in something
yes.
that they don't know what's going to look like, they don't know how it's going to affect them. It really
There
is
are no
hands off.
focus groups.
Yeah. There's no answers. It's not predetermined. There's no
Yes,
blueprint, no map. Um, and that's deeply exciting when you let go into that possibility. Um, it really becomes something that, um, yeah, it's
yes,
a reason to be. It's a reason to be engaged. It's a
yes,
reason to be
yes,
available. Yeah.
yes. To feel that exactly, to be a caretaker of that potential. And
Yes. Well, that's a lovely way
yes,
of expressing it. Yeah. Well, that seems a great point to leave it on
yes.
because you feel I feel we're right on that edge right now together.
Thank you very
Thanks so
much.
much.